The name Joel Osteen usually brings to mind packed arenas, uplifting sermons, and the unmistakable smile of one of America's most influential pastors. For years, millions tuned in weekly to hear messages of hope, faith, and personal transformation. But recently, whispers have grown louder, headlines have begun swirling, and a shocking new chapter in Osteen's life is unfolding, one that no one saw coming. At first, it started with small hints, cryptic social media posts, sudden changes in his public schedule, a brief statement from his ministry that seemed oddly vague. Followers sensed something was off, but no one could have imagined just how serious things were behind the scenes then. Almost overnight, the truth began to surface. Rumors spread across every major platform. News outlets scrambled for details, and fans were left stunned as reports suggested that something dramatic, something unprecedented, had happened to the beloved pastor. Questions poured in faster than answers. Was it personal? Was it financial? Was it health-related? Or was it something far deeper, a turning point that could change everything he had built? The more people tried to piece it together, the more mysterious it became. Even longtime supporters admitted they had never seen Osteen so quiet, so withdrawn, so unlike the unshakable public figure they had grown accustomed to. The silence only added fuel to the fire. And now, as the real story finally begins to emerge, one thing is absolutely clear. Whatever has happened to Pastor Joel Osteen is far bigger, far more shocking, and far more consequential than anyone expected. His followers are bracing for answers that could reshape his legacy forever. For years, Pastor Joel Osteen had been a symbol of unwavering optimism, a man whose calm voice and confident smile reassured millions around the world. Nothing ever seemed to faze him. Through controversies, criticism, and constant public scrutiny, he maintained a steady composure that almost felt superhuman. That's why the first signs that something was wrong sent an uneasy ripple through the people closest to him. It began subtly, almost invisibly. Staff members at Lakewood Church noticed that Osteen, who usually arrived early, greeting workers with his usual warm energy, was showing up later, slipping through side entrances, avoiding the usual morning conversations. To outsiders, these details would have seemed insignificant, but to those who had worked alongside him for decades, it was jarring. Joel Osteen didn't change routines, ever. Then came the canceled appearances. At first, his team blamed scheduling conflicts. Nothing unusual. Osteen's calendar was always packed: interviews, conferences, book signings, and broadcasts. But when 3 major events were canceled in a single week, longtime supporters began whispering. Something didn't feel right. Osteen hadn't canceled multiple commitments in such a short span in nearly 20 years. Fans noticed too. A televised sermon recorded just weeks earlier showed a Joel Osteen who seemed tired behind the smile. His voice was steady, but slightly subdued. His eyes, once bright and expressive, looked strained. Messages began circulating online from viewers asking why their pastor seemed different, distracted, and not quite himself. But the clearest sign came during a Monday staff briefing. According to those present, Osteen appeared unusually quiet, listening more than speaking, avoiding eye contact. Normally, this meeting was where he set the tone for the entire week, energizing everyone with his signature encouragement. But that day he simply nodded through updates, occasionally pressing his fingers against his temples as though fighting a headache. That wouldn't ease. Rumors grew stronger when Osteen abruptly postponed a major out-of-state appearance, something he had spent months preparing for. The reason given to organizers was unforeseen personal complications. The wording alone sent speculation into overdrive. Personal complications? Osteen was known for addressing challenges head-on, not withdrawing from them. Then came the moment that truly amplified the concern. During a Sunday service, a service streamed live around the world, Osteen paused halfway, threw a message, only for a fraction of a second, but long enough that the congregation felt the shift. He steadied himself on the podium, took a slow breath, and continued. The cameras stayed tight on his face, trying to mask the moment, but online viewers caught it instantly. Clip after clip surfaced on social media within minutes, with millions asking the same question: what is happening to Pastor Joel Osteen? Behind the scenes, tension grew. Staff were instructed not to discuss Osteen's condition, whatever it was, with anyone outside the ministry. Several longtime members described the atmosphere as unnervingly quiet, as though everyone was waiting for an announcement. That never came. Osteen's family kept an equally low profile. His wife Victoria, usually active across church events and social platforms, posted only a short, cryptic message: "Keep us in your prayers." No context, no explanation. Just 7 words that ignited a wildfire of speculation. By now, the silence had grown too loud to ignore. News outlets began probing. Reporters called Lakewood repeatedly for statements, and those spokespersons insisted everything was under control. Their carefully rehearsed tone said otherwise. Followers, confused and anxious, prayed publicly and privately. For many of them, Osteen was more than a pastor. He was a source of emotional stability, a voice that carried them through their darkest moments. Losing him, even temporarily, felt unthinkable. Something serious was happening behind closed doors, something Osteen had kept hidden from the world for as long as he could. And as the weeks unfolded, it became clear that whatever he was facing wasn't a minor setback. It was something that could shake the foundation of his ministry, his public image, and his future. The world didn't yet know the full truth, but they were about to. The silence couldn't hold forever. After weeks of speculation, canceled appearances, and cryptic messages from those closest to him, the truth about Pastor Joel Osteen began to surface, and once it did, it spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. What started as quiet concern within Lakewood Church exploded into a global conversation almost overnight. The breaking point came when an internal email meant only for a handful of senior staff was anonymously leaked to a Houston-based news outlet. The email didn't reveal every detail, but it contained enough to confirm what millions of followers feared but didn't want to believe. Joel Osteen was going through something serious, something that had significantly impacted his ability to lead. Within minutes, major news platforms were publishing alerts. Concerns grow over Joel Osteen's condition. Lakewood Church confirms significant personal challenges. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag pray for Osteen. Hashtag Joel Osteen update. Hashtag Lakewood Church. For many, the sudden confirmation felt like a punch to the chest. Osteen wasn't just a pastor, he was a symbol of positivity in a world drowning in negativity. He kept people steady. He helped them believe tomorrow would be better than today. Hearing that he was struggling felt like watching the strongest pillar in a building begin to crack. Church members began arriving at Lakewood just to stand outside and pray. Some brought candles, some brought handwritten cards, and others simply stood with bowed heads in silence. Many said they had never felt such uncertainty surrounding their leader. A few members wept openly on camera as reporters lingered outside the gates, hoping for statements. Meanwhile, celebrities and Christian leaders who had appeared with Osteen over the years posted messages of support online. Some shared personal stories, moments when Osteen had encouraged them during difficult times. Others urged people not to jump to conclusions and to respect his privacy. But the very fact that so many public figures were issuing statements only added to the weight of the situation. Inside Lakewood, a storm was brewing. Staff members felt blindsided by the leak, and tension filled the hallways. Some were angry, some were frightened, and many were simply heartbroken. For years, Osteen had been both a leader and a friend, someone who celebrated birthdays, offered guidance, and remembered names long after meeting someone once. Seeing him suddenly thrust into a cloud of uncertainty was overwhelming. The press camped outside his home. Helicopters hovered above the church. Every detail, every rumor was magnified. When Osteen's son was seen leaving their residence looking distressed, headlines immediately speculated about family turmoil. When Victoria Osteen skipped a weekly teaching session, commentators questioned whether the situation was worsening. In the midst of the chaos, Lakewood Church held a special service. The atmosphere inside the massive sanctuary was unlike anything the congregation had ever experienced. Instead of the usual upbeat music and bright stage lighting, the tone was subdued. The worship team sang slower, gentler songs. The audience sat still, hanging on every word spoken by the interim speaker and associate pastor who had served alongside Osteen for years. He addressed the elephant in the room head-on. Without hiding behind vague statements, Pastor Osteen is facing a difficult season. He said quietly, and he needs our prayers now more than ever. The room fell silent. Some gasped softly, others clasped hands. But let me reassure you, he continued, this church stands strong, and God stands with Pastor Joel. The reassurance helped, but it didn't erase the fear. After the service, hundreds stayed behind, gathering in small circles throughout the sanctuary to pray. The community felt shaken, almost suspended between hope and dread. As the day ended, one thing became undeniable. This wasn't just a personal struggle for Joel Osteen, it had become a moment that would define his life, his ministry, and the millions who had looked to him for strength. And while the world still didn't know the full story, the impact was already beginning to reshape everything around him. For years, Pastor Joel Osteen seemed untouchable. His ministry was thriving, his audience was massive, and his message of positivity kept millions tuning in week after week. But behind the polished smile and the perfectly tailored suit, something was shifting slowly, quietly, and far more dramatically than anyone realized. Chapter 3 begins at the point where everything in Osteen's world took an unexpected turn. It started with a single Sunday service, one that was supposed to be routine. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the crowd was as large as ever. But Osteen walked onto the stage looking different, not physically, but emotionally. His usual confidence seemed replaced by something heavier, almost like the weight of a truth he could no longer carry alone. Those closest to him noticed it instantly. He wasn't simply tired. He was conflicted. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, whispers about financial pressure, internal disagreements, and a growing divide among the leadership in his circle. But no one expected Joel to address any of it publicly. That wasn't his style. He lived by one principle: focus on the positive, ignore the noise. But that morning, he broke his own rule. He stepped up to the podium, looked across the massive auditorium, and paused for a full 10 seconds. That silence, echoing across the church and into households watching around the world, became the moment many would later call the shift. Joel began speaking slowly, carefully choosing every word. He talked about the challenges he had been facing, the criticism he could no longer ignore, and the emotional strain of leading a ministry under constant scrutiny. He didn't name names, and he didn't point fingers, but the message was clear. Something serious was happening behind the scenes, something his followers had not been told. For the first time in his career, Joel allowed vulnerability to overshadow optimism. He spoke about pressure, financial, spiritual, personal, and about the fear of disappointing millions of people who looked to him for guidance. His voice cracked only once, but that was enough for the world to hear. Many viewers said later that they sensed a kind of confession coming. But instead of revealing a scandal or stepping down, Joel made a surprising declaration. He needed to step back and rebuild from the inside. What did that mean? No one fully understood. His words were intentionally vague, yet powerful enough to send shockwaves through the ministry community. Some took it as a hint toward internal conflict. Others believed it was burnout. A few speculated it was the beginning of a major transition. But it didn't end there. In the days that followed, Joel canceled appearances, postponed events, and retreated from the public eye more than he had in years. Critics jumped on the sudden silence, but his supporters were left confused and worried. Something bigger was clearly unfolding, and Joel's rare moment of honesty only deepened the mystery. Behind closed doors, his closest advisors were scrambling. They knew the challenges Joel hinted at were not new. They had been building for months. Expenses were rising, partnerships were shifting, and internal disagreements were reaching a point where someone had to make a tough call. Joel's announcement wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. A reset was coming, and he wanted to control the narrative before someone else did. In the weeks following Joel Osteen's unexpected announcement, the silence surrounding him grew louder than any sermon he had ever preached. Fans, critics, and church members alike were waiting, some with concern, others with suspicion. Joel had promised a rebuilding from the inside, but no one imagined what that truly meant. Behind the scenes, pressure had been boiling for a long time. Financial advisors were pushing for restructuring. Senior staff members were disagreeing over decisions. And Joel himself was battling an inner conflict. He could no longer suppress. He felt disconnected from the very message he had built his career upon. Positivity, hope, abundance. It all felt different now. Heavy, forced. As the rumors spread, the media circled like hawks. Every canceled appearance became a headline. Every postponed service became a theory. Social media was filled with speculation. Was he stepping down? Was there a scandal? Was his ministry collapsing? The questions grew, and Joel's silence only fueled them. Then came the day everything broke wide open. It wasn't a dramatic press conference or a leaked document. It began quietly through a private meeting with his leadership team, one that would soon shape every headline for months. Joel walked into the room composed, almost calm, but those closest to him immediately sensed this wasn't just another strategy session. This was the moment he was finally ready to reveal what had been weighing on him for so long. He began with the words no one expected. "I can't continue like this." The room fell silent. Joel wasn't just talking about stress, he was talking about a life-altering decision. He explained how the constant expectations had drained him, how the image the world saw was no longer aligned with the man he felt he was becoming. He confessed that his connection to the message he preached had weakened, and pretending otherwise felt dishonest. Those who listened later admitted they had never seen him speak with such raw transparency. For years, Joel had been the symbol of unwavering optimism. Now, he was revealing the weight of carrying that role. He told them he needed to pull away, not permanently, but long enough to rediscover the purpose behind his calling. He didn't want to simply lead a church. He wanted to believe again with the same sincerity he once had. But the true bombshell came when he addressed the ministry's internal issues head-on. Joel admitted that the disagreements within the leadership had reached a breaking point. Financial pressures had forced decisions he wasn't comfortable with. Expansion projects had grown too fast, and the massive expectations placed on Lakewood Church had pushed the staff into constant crisis mode. Then he revealed something even more shocking, something his team knew about but had never expected him to admit publicly. He had been considering stepping away from the pulpit entirely. The statement hit the room like a thunderclap. Some were stunned. Some were heartbroken. Others feared what it would mean for the future of the ministry. If Joel walked away, everything connected to his name would be shaken. Broadcasts, books, partnerships, even the financial stability of the organization itself. But Joel was serious. He explained that taking a step back wasn't about abandoning his responsibilities. It was about preventing the message from becoming hollow. He felt that if he continued in his current state, he would be doing a disservice to millions who trusted his guidance. His leadership team urged him to reconsider. They proposed alternatives: delegating responsibilities, taking a shorter break, restructuring the workload. After hours of discussion, Joel made a compromise. He would take a long sabbatical, and during that time, the ministry would be led by a temporary team, while internal operations were reorganized from the ground up. When this decision leaked, because it inevitably did, the world reacted instantly. News outlets ran dramatic headlines. Social media exploded. Supporters flooded the internet with prayers and encouragement. Critics claimed the ministry was collapsing. The entire religious community was shaken. And yet, for the first time in a long time, Joel felt something he had been missing: clarity.